This is an HP News Network special report. Okay, YouTubers and anti-nuke activists, welcome to another special report. And this is your host, Patrick Penry. Okay, when we left off last, I had given Gregory Jaczko a little bit of credit for standing up and speaking out on spent fuel pool number 4 before members of Congress and stating that it was in fact dry on the 15th of March 2011. And I gave him a little credit for that, but let's retract all that credit on Gregory Jaczko because he's really not a good guy. Now, if you dig into the FOIA documents a little deeper, what you find out is, while it is true that his initial statement, he pretty much told the truth as he saw it, as it was told to him, information directly from NRC officials embedded with TEPCO, embedded with Conti, the Japanese Situation Room, embedded with the government of Japan. It was excellent first-hand information that he had received. And when he went before Congress, he tried to state the condition of spent fuel pool. If you've seen my Fear and Loathing on Fukushima Unit 4, and you've read that, you know beyond any doubt what really happened at Unit 4. Now, we can only assume that at some point Gregory Jaczko gets a call from someone, and he has to now go back and recant that. And as it was read to me the other night at some statement of his, Jaczko, that they claim they made an honest mistake and it was full of water the whole time. So, you know, a phone call can be made and a statement can be retracted. If you've read my article on Fear and Loathing, you know where it ended off in that conversation with Gregory Jaczko, Elliot Brenner, and Chuck Casto. Brenner asked, is there anything you need to roll back? And he's referring specifically to the Unit 4 spent fuel pool, which Jaczko has now publicly admitted has no water in it. On this transcript, this conversation, Jaczko then checks with Chuck Casto. Casto says, even if there was a little bit of water in it then, it's gone by now. You made the right call. And they stick to their guns on Unit 4 being dry. And if you read the collection of evidence I have, wow. I mean, it's just incredible. I've really proven the case, although I try to, be upstanding about it and say, look, I can't prove to you that this has happened. I can only show you this incredible amount of evidence. Well, in a civil case, I would have proven my, more likely than not, more often than not. Now, Jaczko recants his statement, and now let's look at some more shenanigans from Jaczko. What we're looking at here is a screen capture from the NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Freedom of Information Act documents pertaining to Fukushima, free and available to the public online. And I'll tell you, folks, when I just go to the NRC's website and randomly click on a file and open it up, gosh, there's so much for me to write about and to talk about, and breaking news, information people have not heard of and they simply do not know about. So it's very fulfilling for me to be able to get this information to you. And while I'm thinking about it, just a big word of appreciation to every American citizen and anyone around the world that's taken it upon themselves to educate yourself about nuclear power and about Fukushima. So if you're a fan of Miss Milky the Clown or Kevin Blanchard or myself or any of the ones telling the truth about Plume-Gate, look, my tip of the hat to you. And I really appreciate you spending the time to learn this information, because it's important to me that we change the world, get rid of nuclear power, and give the future children of this planet the best chance they have. I know that sounds kind of corny, but that's just a fact, and that's really how I honestly really feel about it. Okay, let's look at this screen cap from Gregory Jaczko to Holly Harrington, and he's making a statement here. He says, this is regards to Q&As. Now, I've been over Q&As, press release talking points. That's the prefabricated information they put together to deny us the whole entire truth. Maybe it's a little bit of the truth, but it's not the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And he says, well, actually, the email, again, this is from, the initial one goes from Holly Harrington to Jaczko, and she says, these are the current Q&As with both answers suitable for the public and additional technical information. We expect these will continue to evolve. And he responds, let's delete the non-public piece related to new reactors. The public statement is all we need for that item at this time. Now, what's he talking about? Let's have a look at that particular Q&A. It's number 11 here on this particular screen capture. Number 11, will this incident, referring to Fukushima catastrophe, affect new reactor licensing, referring to new reactors here in the United States? Public answer. It is not appropriate to hypothesize on such a future scenario at this point. Now, additional technical non-public information. This event could potentially call into question the NRT's seismic requirements, which could require the staff to reevaluate the staff's approval for the AP1000 and ESBWR design and certifications. Those are the two new ones, to my knowledge, are the two new kind of reactors they want to get licensed and get out there. So if you look at this particular Q&A, and isn't it kind of a conundrum, right? A little bit hypocritical to say it's not appropriate to hypothesize on such a future scenario. Will this affect future licensing of reactors? But then right there in the non-public information, they've already hypothesized about it. They tell you don't hypothesize about it, but they have. Oh, they're very concerned about it. But he knows now, Jaczko knows all this is subject to freedom of information. I think what he's trying to do is remove that before at a later date. That's going to come up in these Freedom of Information Act documents, and someone like myself is going to say, look, even the NRC knows they should be questioning anything and everything right now because of what happened at Fukushima. We have non-seismically qualified spent fuel pools in the United States. We are not prepared for a co-incident of a tsunami and earthquake. This is admitted in these documents. They admit that in these documents. They are not prepared for a co-incident. They do not consider a co-incident possible. Okay, so this reflects very poorly on Gregory Jaczko. Again, it's information control, denial of information. You will not get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in a timely manner, period. Not with the nuclear industry and not with nuclear power, and certainly not in one of these catastrophic meltdowns. And that's just a fact. I know it sucks, but folks, until we change things in this country, we're going to continue to live with the specter of nuclear power hanging over our back. The shadow of the possibility of a multiple meltdown will continue to hang over our back like a dark cloud blocking out the sun, folks. Fact. Okay, now, I want to do one more thing I want to read to you. This is a letter from this was found in the FOIA documents. This is a letter from a person named Frederick Brown. And he just brought up some great points. I don't know exactly who this person is, but, you know, he's an insider that he knows Michael Chiak and Kathy Gibbs and some of these other people who are larger players in this whole Fukushima Plume-Gate affair. And he addresses it to Mike and to Kathy, so he knows them on a first-name basis. First, I'm not sure that you two are the right folks to ask, but I know that you'll know where this should go. I'd like to have folks with the right skill set look at two issues. Parentheses, the two are interrelated, but the first may be easier to give a quick answer to without the work that the second will take. Number one, given the known or assumed status of the 3 units and 4 pools, what realistic scenarios exist for the energetic dispersion of high quantities of radioactive material that would result in mobile plumes? The point of this question is that there are many clear scenarios that present significant near-area radiological challenges, but given the time since shutdown, parentheses for the operating units, and age of much of the fuel in the spent fuel pools, parentheses, what are the remaining scenarios of concern with respect to more distant locations? Tokyo, with a large concentration of U.S. citizens, Alaska, Hawaii, etc. Okay, we now know Alaska and Hawaii, all these were bombarded. Tokyo, a 170-mile plume went down the coast and swept across Tokyo. It's admitted in these documents. These plumes were laden with aerosolized plutonium. I have an abstract from Lithuania where they detected in late March, early April, aerosolized plutonium along with iodine and cesium from Fukushima, not from Chernobyl. They determined that in this abstract. It was aerosolized plutonium, and they mentioned the spent fuel from Fukushima. Okay, number two, again, from the Frederick Brown letter to Kathy Gibson and Michael Chiak. Number two, given the assumed condition of the 3 units and 4 pools, can we generate basic event trees for the coming weeks/months? The point would be to identify key success criteria and to help identify key decision points/risk factors to be balanced. For instance, take 2 units, each with significant core damage and prior release of volatile fission products, each with primary and secondary containment failure, but one with an intact reactor pressure vessel and the other with a breach of reactor pressure vessel. Would there be a difference in potential releases that would lead to different strategies for flooding the primary containment of these 2 units? This question will make more sense if you look at the assumed conditions below and the attached assessment document where we recommend that TEPCO utilize the Severe Accident Management Guidelines recommendation to flood all 3 units' containments. So the very fact he's asking this question here seems to me there's not a clear priority, a clear procedure in this event Maybe this needs to be worked out amongst NRC in a response strategy type formula. But all of these questions are very relevant and really do need to be addressed. And so can we flood the containment is what he's saying. And should we flood the containment? If one has not lost a breach of the reactor pressure vessel and one has, what's the difference? What's the strategy? What should we do? That's what I'm interpreting out of that. Okay, goes on to say, note that the intent is to limit this activity to hours and days, not weeks or years, referring to the recovery effort of Fukushima, I believe. Once we validate the concept of this evaluation, we can turn it over to the U.S. industry for further action/development. Okay, then he talks about the assumed status. This is where it really gets good. Assumed status, parentheses, slightly different than the status in the attached assessment. Unit 1. Shutdown on 311, 70% core damage. Cooling with 30 gallons per minute. Significant salt deposits in vessel, and we talked about that. They were worried early on that these salt deposits would accumulate, and then you're not able to even flood seawater in there if you have too much salt. So again, no easy path, no easy way to rectify Fukushima. It is the catastrophic, the world's worst, hands down industrial accident we will probably, hopefully, ever have. Significant salt deposits in vessel. Core spray plugged. Primary pressure 65 psig. Dry well pressure 25 psig. Secondary containment destroyed. Containment has been vented at least once since fuel damage occurred. Attempting to establish nitrogen purge prior to resuming venting. Unit 2, shutdown 311, 30% core damage. Significant salt deposits in vessel/dry well. Assumed reactor pressure vessel breach with at least some core X vessel that occurred approximately 3:15. Okay, let me back up on that again. Assumed reactor pressure vessel breach with at least some core X vessel that occurred approximately 3:15. That means on the 15th of March, it breached the reactor pressure vessel at some point, and some of the core went X vessel it escaped in the form of emissions, radioactivity, so on and so forth. Significant release of volatile fission products has occurred through both airborne release and also via water drainage out of the reactor building. I missed a part there. Primary containment breached in the torus. Secondary containment breached. And he says significant release of volatile fission products has occurred through both airborne release and also via water drainage out of the reactor building. And folks, if you read these documents, once you find out with these pumper trucks and concrete trucks and the Bechtel pumps what their amount they're pumping, you have to know that it's not all being withheld inside what spent fuel pools are still intact or inside the reactor pressure vessels. It's leaking out of cracks. It's pouring out the side like a sieve. Drainage pits are filling up and then overflowing into the ocean. This is an ongoing process in an attempt to keep it as cool as you can. Again, it's damage mitigation. There's no easy way out. They talked about a sand and lead slurry, but we know if they did that, the guy says, hey, it'd still just be sitting there baking away, and it's still going to have some emissions. It's best if you follow the NUREG manual, we pour water on it, and that's exactly what they did. Okay, let's look at Unit 3. Same assumptions as Unit 2, but do not assume reactor pressure vessel failure and location of primary containment breach may be the dry well. Spent fuel pool 1, 292 bundles, pool intact, all fuel at least 12 years old. Okay, now that fuel in number 1, ladies and gentlemen, to my knowledge and my research, has been there long enough that is now in what we can call a cool state. I mean, no, it's not cool, but it's cool enough you can, they're close to dry casking of that fuel. If in theory you had a spent fuel pool and it was full of fuel that was 12, 15 years old, something like that, had been there a long time and had the opportunity to cool, I have read where it's possible, or so they claim, that the pool could leak and that fuel would still not have a meltdown or zerk fire because it just wouldn't produce those temperatures as it's had the time to cool. Keep that in mind. And I discussed this on Fear and Loathing on Fukushima Unit 4, and there's great detail in there if you want to learn everything about checkerboarding of fuel and length of time that they leave it in the spent fuel pools and all that good stuff. Spent fuel pool number 2, 587 bundles, pool intact, water added to the point of pool overflow. Pool had reached saturation temperature at one time. Spent fuel pool 3, and I've got a statement from Jaczko where he talks about a crack in number 3, and it's not holding water either, but we can't trust anything these guys say, right? Spent fuel pool 3, 548 bundles, 1/4 core offload previous refueling. No checkerboarding of hotter fuel. Structural damage to pool area suspected. Pool leakage possible. External addition of water has been made repeatedly, but flooding of pool may not be possible due to damage. Spent fuel pool 4, 1,331 bundles. Full core offload about 120 days ago. And there it is, folks. That fuel is hot, hot, hot. Hot, hot, hot. And there's no secondary cooling system. When these things go down and the water drains out, there are not overhead sprayers that come on. There's not a secondary unit to start pumping water. And if you have no power, you couldn't do it anyway. Couldn't do it anyway. No checkerboarding of hotter fuel. Structural damage to pool area is known to exist, and structure may not support a full pool weight load. So it's so bad now that even if they could fill it, just the volume and weight of that water might cause the structure to collapse. It's no longer structurally sound. Pool leakage likely, requiring addition of water periodically. Pool was likely dry enough to have cladding/water reaction, which produced enough hydrogen to lead to catastrophic explosion that destroyed secondary containment. Okay, and that's what I wanted to show you on this particular letter from Frederick Brown. He made some excellent points and revealed again some more of their knowledge of the status of these reactors in the spent fuel pools at the time. And if there's any question in your mind about spent fuel pool number 4, if they're telling you when they pull the fuel out, it could collapse, it could be catastrophic, please read my Fear and Loathing on Fukushima Unit 4, and it will allay your fears and put your fears to rest. Unfortunately, the worst of the worst has likely already happened there. But at least there's no need for you to be in this state of angst and stress and anxiety over this. And that's a very effective tactic to keep you so stressed and so worried. I mean, you don't have time to investigate. You don't have time to push this information out. And some people might think they just don't have any time left to live. I mean, seriously, if you can convince them Planet X is about to destroy the whole planet, I mean, they're not going to do anything. They're going to want to live out their last few days in peace. Do you get that? So it's a very effective scare tactic. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another special report by Hatrick Penry, and I thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll join me again, and you have an excellent day, as radiation-free as you possibly can. Thank you very much. Hatrick Penry, over and out.
We need to get subscribed and get this unity stronger and beat YouTube at their own game. Okay, that's what this is about. Like I say, go to the remix button, hit the remix button. That way you'll have this video and keep up with this. Otherwise, YouTube's just going to control us, guys, and it's really bad.